Good morning, afternoon, evening, and welcome to our panel discussion today on HR technology, strategic technology analysis and tactical implementation. My name's Rod Hutchings. I'm a digital transformation leader from Melbourne, Australia. Nice 1 a.m. here. Today we'll be joined by some amazing leaders in the area. Our focus will be on the critical role of digital transformation in HR, evaluating and selecting the right technologies, tactical implementation to meet the evolving needs of our workforce. So let's bring forward our panelists and get right into it. Good morning.
Good morning. Very early morning for you.
Very early for me. I've got lots of lights on. Doesn't look like it. All right. So let's just go around. We'll go around our virtual room and do some introductions and just maybe tell us about why you're fascinated about this topic as we do that. And if we can start with you, Kay.
Sure. My name is Kay Nadel. I have been part of HR for over 20 years, mostly also specializing in talent development and talent management. So have had a hand in putting in a fair amount of technology pieces. So it's always very interesting. Been through small and a little bit larger implementations. So it's always an exciting topic to talk through. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. And Lindsay.
Hello, everyone. Lindsay Garrido. Like Kay, I've been in HR 20 years now. I've had a lot of different roles throughout my career, some in some certain areas of HR, others in more of the HR generalist work. Currently, I'm head of people and culture, and I wanted to be a part of this conversation because HR technology is something that's been a part of the work that I've done all throughout my career. It's been something that's so important to enable the team and also the organization to be effective and to deliver best-in-class experiences for the employees, the managers, and the HR team. So really excited to dive into this topic today.
Thank you, and welcome. Last but not least.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ajit Vishwanath. I'm the Director of HR Information Systems, currently working for the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. I've been in this space for close to 19 years now. I've been sort of mostly on the HR technology space. I'm passionate about both HR and technology. So this is my sweet spot, not giving up on either of them. So that's where I bring my passion in. I've been on the consulting side for most of my career, 10 plus years, and then I've been on the business side as well. So it's a good mix.
Excellent. So we've got a good mix from HR leaders and someone also on the technology side. So it should be a good conversation. So just maybe starting with a little icebreaker, I'm just wondering, to get us going, what's sort of one technology advancement that we see happening now that really excites you most, and why would that be?
So if I may pitch in, I think at this point in time, as the entire world is talking about AI and ChatGPT and stuff, I think that's a great area to venture into. But the only thing that I see as a deterrent is, are we as an organization ready to move into that or leap into the AI or ChatGPT spectrum within HR? Because it's not like any other section of the business. We are so bound by legalities, laws, policies that we need to sort of be really careful treading that very thin line as to whether we are breaking the law at some point in time, or are we really, really applying our AI advancements to the right business functions within HR. So I think that's really important and one of the most intriguing topics that are being discussed right now.
That's very true. And I think both your aspects are there's good parts and there's a lot of bad parts too, I think. Anyone else want to? Yeah, go on, Kay.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, go ahead, Kay.
All right, because I was going to agree. Like AI is definitely the way it's going. Though I think we need to also understand that people are using it, whether we like it or not, whether they're in a secure environment or not. So I think from an HR perspective, we need to ensure that we have guidelines in place so that individuals can use the technology in a secure way. So whether that is you're not ready to pay for your own environment yet, or you've gone ahead and spent the money. If you've spent the money, great, then you're secure. But if you haven't, you need to put some guidelines in.
Very true.
Yeah, I was going to jump in as well, and we all have the same sentiments. And I think there's a lot of great capabilities. One of the things I'm working on right now that I'm excited about is using it to create voiceover for a training. So I'm looking to develop trainings and be able to deliver those more efficiently and faster. It's been a really great tool for me to be able to, and it's done so well, is to put that voiceover into the trainings and have that audio for it. So I've been really enjoying that recently. And I think that there's a lot of other, I was trying to think of something beyond AI. I know it's the hot topic at the moment, but I've also been enjoying just how technology has enabled us as HR teams to deliver information and experiences beyond the desk. I come from hospitality and also healthcare for many years, where most of the employees don't have work emails or sit at a computer all day. Maybe they don't even have a work computer or email at all. And so being able to reach them, deliver information and important communications, give them access to the things that they need on a mobile basis has been such a huge improvement and a great way to introduce technology.
I think the other thing other than AI is skills. Anything to do with skills is hot, and it has been for I think the last 2 years or so. So, and it still is. Like you can just need to go onto LinkedIn. You'll see many conversations about implementing or integrating skills within your organization. So I think skills is a huge piece of technology right now, and I think AI makes it easier too. It used to be kind of hard to synthesize those skills, but it definitely helps kind of get those things into gear and get your taxonomies together. So definitely a combination of the two.
In one of the very recent conversations that I've had with a ATS platform that engages AI, something very interesting that I sort of uncovered is during the conversation, they were sort of presenting to us how the platform is going to get the right candidates in, not having to spend too much time by the recruiter to sort of get to the candidate skills that is matching the job. So one of the questions that I asked the product team is, how do you ensure that the candidate has not used AI to build their profile to match the job description or the job that is being sort of evaluated for? At that point, they did have a pause, and it was like a 2 minutes pause that they had to sort of go through to rethink as to how to respond to that question. And in the end, there was not a confirmed response that I got. So it makes us think that, have we jumped that bridge without analyzing how those other aspects which go alongside implementing an AI platform needs to be sort of looked at? So that was really interesting when I got into that conversation.
No, that's a very good point. You can sort of say, here's a job description and here's my resume. Can you now make them match, please? Yeah, you can have a go at that. Very good point. All right, so moving on. So the topic's about strategic technology analysis as part of it. So maybe if we start there, I'm just wondering, what are some of the top factors for HR leaders should consider when choosing new technology for their workforce? A big meaty question, but also
I can
broad.
kick off. I've just gone through this, implementing new technology in my organization, and have been through that process a few times now. And I think one of the first important things is doing a needs analysis, understanding what are the needs of the HR team, of employees, of managers, making sure that all of their voices are heard and that you're really understanding why you want new technology. It's not just to sort of have the shiny new technology that's out there. I think it's really important to understand what improvements do you need to see? What efficiencies do you need to gain? And how can that technology meet those needs? It's a big effort and it's a lot to introduce new technology to employees and managers, and their plates are full. And that change management aspect is going to be a lot easier when the technology and the solutions meet their needs and make their day-to-day and their work life that much better. And so I think with that in mind, it's really important to, before you begin the process of vetting your vendors and the different solutions that are out there, that you really understand what is important to you, what do you need to see, and have identified questions that you're going to benchmark each of them against, so that you're really assessing everyone equally and understanding how the different solutions are going to meet the needs that you've identified for your organization.
Yes, some really great points there. Who
I
wants
think
to add
Lindsay
on to that?
I do. I think Lindsay made a great point. It's definitely the why for your technology, but I also think it's what do you currently have in place? I think sometimes, you know, if you're a smaller HR, you already know what your HR stack is. So you're probably already very intimately aware of what it all can do. But when you start to get to medium to larger size, there are so many different pieces across the organization. What do you already have? Like, do you really need to get something in place, or can you utilize something that you already have? Or maybe there's an add-on or a product that's something you've already got in place has got that can serve your needs. So I think not only are you looking at the why and who it's going to serve, but also what do you currently have, and do you really need something? Is the next point.
That's a very good point.
I think I'd like to bring in two different aspects to this topic. One is, typically we sort of tend to sort of define new HR technology implementation and considerations based on people, process, and technologies. I think that is obsolete at this point, just putting in that particular frame. It needs to be people, process, policy, practice, and technology, because I often see that during my consulting years, I've seen that your people is something that we can quickly fix. It's not a big deal. You have processes that are in SOPs that have been lying in that SOP for years and years without being revisited or updated as processes change. Then you've got policies which are written different ways. The first paragraph says something totally contrary to what the last paragraph says. So you need to have consistency on those sides as well. Then it is process. It is you've got your policies and everything sort of documented, but as a practice, what are you doing? Are you aligning your process that you've documented in practice? There might be differences in how that is being done. Then comes technology. Technology is just the last piece once you have cleared out all of these other aspects on the business side of the house. And the second aspect that I'd like to sort of bring to the conversation is, are we doing a good job understanding our current state? Because what typically happens with technology implementations is you actually go into the kickoff meeting just getting prepared, bring in all of the documentation and start talking about where you want to go. So first is assessment of where you are at, decide on where you want to go in that first call with the implementation vendor. But unless and until you do not have a realization or self-awareness of where you are at, there is no point in sort of looking at the future, because you have not corrected your processes, you have not corrected your mistakes, you're trying to sort of move from one place to another. That's the only thing that you're doing. It's just like you're moving from one house to the other without decluttering in the first place.
All very good points and all quite consistent there. Make sure that you know what you've got and know what you need is, I think, what I heard from each of you. So I'll just moving on to the next little question. I'm just wondering, how does HR technology improve employee experience and engagement? And so what are some key strategies for rolling out that technology?
I think I'll kick this off. Off late, I've heard of comments from leaders across the globe, at least some prominent leaders, where they've put the employee experience piece not as part of the HR function. So I sort of did not align to that particular approach. Yes, employee experience is part of the HR function largely, but there are other aspects to it. I do not sort of negate the other aspects to it. but definitely there is the employee life cycle that the employee goes through. How do they feel from them being a candidate to them retiring if they go through the entire cycle? So that is the experience that you're trying to create. So the only difference that we have sort of moved on is from a physical experience to a digital experience. And how are we managing that with all the remote work that has come into the workforce right now? It's mostly ensuring that there is connectivity, not just as a candidate, even a candidate that has not been hired to your organization is a potential future employee. So you need to sort of ensure that there is pre-hire to rehire as a thought process, because you typically sort of think about hire to retire. That's not it. Pre-hire to rehire is what the mindset should sort of be at, because you're looking at a potential candidate and you're looking at people who have retired and want to come back into the workforce as well.
And I think that it's important to understand engagement is the outcome of your employee experience. And so that will naturally derive from the experience that you're providing and delivering. And I think that HR technology plays a really important role in having a digital front door. How can you create digitally access to information and resources and key information and enable employees and managers to get that first level of support that they need at their fingertips on their own time whenever they need. They don't have to go through barriers of people or questions or waiting for a response to a call or an email to answer some of their basic, but for them, probably pretty critical, important questions that they may have. So I think that that's been one of the guidelines that I've kind of used to enable how we're constructing the experience is what is that digital front door? What are we enabling the employees and managers to have at their fingertips? And then how do we build on it from there? I kind of view it similarly to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that's what I kind of thought about as I was going through a recent RFP and implementation of new technology is employee experience is all throughout everything that you're doing. And that baseline, that bottom level of the basic needs is payroll, time and attendance, compliance. You really need that strong foundation in place. That's what's going to be most important. And then from there, you can build on that and go to the next levels where then you're engaging in performance management and surveys and, the employee experience with inside the system and the interface, and then eventually working your way up to data insights and obtaining those strategic insights from your data and from the analytics that you're getting from your system. So it's sort of a level that you'll progress through, but I think keeping in mind that the employee experience has to be a part of that the whole way through.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I think everyone's made a good point. Employee experience definitely starts pre-hire all the way to offboarding. So, but also, so there are multiple technologies that you're going to have to ensure that their experience is the best that it can be. And we also know, like Lindsay said, is that employee experience goes to engagement, which then goes to performance and business performance, and at the end of the day, customer experience. So they kind of intertwine a little. And I think that's where you're going with Ajith, is that individuals feel that employee experience is that important that it does affect the outcome of business. So I think that's when we start thinking about the technology that we put in place for individuals. We need to make sure that not only is the employee experience being heightened, but it's integrated, that the systems, that they don't feel like they're moving from one to another, that it feels like an even flow of data, that it's something that they can use in their everyday life. This is stuff that we run a business. HR technology should be enhancing that business, and individuals shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, just another system to go into. It needs to be something that's every day that they're using. So if it's a performance management tool, it can't feel like it's just another chore. It needs to feel like purposeful, something that they're using to ensure that they are successful with their goals that they're trying to achieve. So I think when we start looking at technology from an employee experience perspective, we need to think of what business outcomes are and how individuals are using those throughout the course of the day, as well as from an HR perspective, because we do need policies and practices and compliance pieces, but those are the back end to make sure that everything runs. Individuals that are using it need to be able to feel the value.
Thanks, Kay.
Sure.
And what got me wondering is, what do we define as HR technology, just within the context of this conversation? Because it can mean lots of different things. But I guess when we're talking about the whole breadth of pre-hiring through to retirement, that could mean a lot of things. So maybe let's just have a go at that. What do we think is HR technology?
In my opinion, I think the way I define HR technology is anything that touches the employee life cycle within an employee's engagement with the organization. So that's why pre-hire is so important. You do not have you're not part of the organization yet, but that experience is so important for you to re-engage the same candidate if that candidate is a superstar, but we were not able to consider them for the current role. So it's not just what an employee sort of engages with. It is every individual who potentially moves through the employee life cycle within the organization experiences. It is not just specific to employees as well. It can be your contractors who are also your potential future hires. So you need to sort of think about what experience are you creating with everybody who engages within the organization. And the mindset has sort of shifted from employee experience to people experience, which encompasses the contractors as well. Now, I think the focus in the future is going to drive towards organizational experience. It is not just employee or people. It is even your vendors' interaction with your organization, because that is a larger picture that we are sort of maturing into, probably at the nascent stage at this point in time, but sometime in the future, we'll get to that state where we are thinking about organizational experience, how you interact within the organization and externally in the organization as well.
I think that's such a great point. Just want to double click on that, because I think that for many organizations, you might have a really large base of temporary employees, contractors that are working for you, and they're always kind of an afterthought. So I think that's a really great point to really double down on and make sure that the experience of how everyone in the organization is interacting with the different technologies that you're implementing is really considered.
Anything? Yeah, maybe what I was also thinking in terms of the question was, like, I don't know, there's, and I'll just use some examples. Like, there's tools like Workday, there's using Microsoft Teams where you use to communicate. There's different training software, sort of.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going to go with, Rob. That's right, exactly what you said, Rod. Is that because we say applicant tracking systems, right? I mean, everyone kind of thinks it's an HRIS, and that's like it. Like, that's not it. That's one piece of it, right? And if there's multiple pieces, because you have an HRIS, you may have pieces that are different vendors dealing with your contractors, like you were saying, they get paid through different systems and so on. But we also have applicant tracking systems. We have background screening systems. We have, LMSs, LXPs. You have, talent systems. There are talent management systems, performance reviews, engagement survey systems. There are just so many pieces out there, and that's why I think I'm kind of this person about integration, because I think it's important that, even though you may be using different systems, that the experience doesn't feel like they keep moving into different systems. So I think that can be very overwhelming for individuals that are looking at HR and saying, why have we got a new system, right? It should just feel like, okay, this is the natural thing. We use Teams, right? If your performance management stuff links into Teams, awesome, use that, right? Because that's where people are at all day long. If it goes back into your HRIS system, even better. LMSs, LXPs, they don't tend to flow back into HRISs, but the feel or the integration that you can use through these other technologies that we have will help with that experience too. So I think there are multiple pieces. We know that this market is flooded, so to actually name names would be here the whole hour. So
no.
Just know that there are big pieces and there are chunks within the actual work that we do from an HR perspective.
And to add to that, I think it's not just the current systems that we are using, it is all of the archived systems that we have access to and where we need to pull data for any sort of a reporting from. I think that is often sort of left out of sight, because it is not important, it is not being engaged on a day-to-day basis, but that is so very important for us to ensure that the critical information that we hold within HR is not compromised at any point in time.
And that's why,
Very good point.
data is so important, right? Like making sure that whatever your historical data, whether it's old systems, new systems, get put into data lakes or however you want to synthesize that data. But that's also a tool. It's a business tool. It's not really an HR tool, but we would use it from an HR perspective.
I'm very
Absolutely.
glad you went there, because my next question was going to be very much along those lines. It was really, what are the main challenges and benefits of integrating new HR technology with existing systems, and how can we manage that change smoothly? Like, what are the things we need to think about? So building on what you just talked about.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also go outside of HR. I was kind of going to loop into what the discussion just was, but I think it leads into that as well. As it's easy to focus on the HR team and what we need to deliver for the people experience, but it's also how we collaborate with other departments that we may interact with, IT, finance, whoever it may be. It's really important to understand how our technology integrates with those teams, meets different standards, if there's corporate governance that's in place, and really making sure that everyone's part of the process. You're not just doing it in a silo. That will hurt you down the road if you've not included those key business partners and stakeholders in your vetting process and being part of the conversation. You'll run into some issues that will make the project not as successful as it should be.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And I think one of the aspects that is left out is during the change management, what sort of an excitement are you creating when you have a new implementation going on? Is it well communicated? Are you sort of creating that aspiration for people to look towards that event going live? Or are you just leaving it at a communication and not sort of working out the kinks on that? Because it is so important for people to start engaging on that new technology that is being delivered, for us to sort of evaluate how good we have done that job, or how we have sort of ensured that everybody's voices are heard when we sort of take into consideration new implementation. So I think that is something that often gets missed. It's part of change management, but are you creating that excitement? Because that is really important for you to engage with a full heart onto that new implementation.
Yeah, and talking about communication, the one thing that I found works really well is getting those, you can call them change agents, but those individuals that are within the business that see value in the system, that can talk to it when you're not in the room. Because I think that's the thing with HR systems, or using, informational systems for HR processes and experiences, is that the individuals that are using it every day are your voice, your communication tool. You can't choose anyone better. So get them involved really early. Get them, have them understand, make them feel part of the process if you can, so that they can then take your message out. It's all good to do a nice big launch, keep the excitement going, but I think to ensure the usage for an extended period than just a few months or so, you need those individuals within the business that are embedded in those areas that can talk to it when you are not there, or encourage individuals to use it when you're not there. So I think that's really important from a communication, also from an implementation success perspective.
No, that's a really good point. And I'm just wondering, does anyone else have any other sort of suggestions around that communication of ensuring that the HR technology is used effectively?
I think training, for me, one of the biggest positive things that we did in a big implementation was letting them touch it, letting them experience the system, getting them into it kind of before we went live, so that there was familiarity with the system and how they were going to navigate it. It wasn't this sort of big change that happened on the go live date. To Kay's point, that was a really successful element, was having those change ambassadors, those change champions. It really did create such a more successful launch, because they were part of the process. It's change happening for them rather than change happening to them. So they were able to really understand the technology before it was out within the full organization, and really understand the value that was being added from it. So I think training is a huge element to consider. It's also a big undertaking. So you're going to have a lot on your plate when you're implementing new technology. And aside from the communication strategy, what is going to be your training strategy, and making sure that you're spending time understanding what you're going to deliver.
And something that I've been successful in one of my previous organizations in doing is, it's not just your virtual trainings. It's not just being communicated. You go run through this training to see what is in store for you. We also created these kiosks in our physical locations, which said, "Are you excited?" Sort of a mood that sets and lets you interact with a person directly and understand from them what is in store, what is changing, ask any questions, answer them, because that is an opportunity for you to get feedback right then and there as well. And we've the one good thing that happened is we've taken down notes on that, ensure that at the time of implementation or go live, we have taken those things into account, because not everybody covers the entire gamut of what needs to be thought about. So there are some additional things that the user or the employee sort of would like to sort of experience from that product, which we may not have thought about at all. So that is an opportunity for us to get those feedbacks when we have those physical touch points as well.
I think from training, and training is very important. And I also think that and I think this is where you were going, Lindsay, and that takes so much work, is that don't just go with your standardized whatever the vendor has for training. Because I know they put a lot of effort into it, and it's really great. But if you want to be successful, individuals need to understand how it works in their environments and with how we're using it. And sometimes when we implement a technology, we're updating small things, or we're customizing it for our audience, and they don't see that customization in the vendor training. So I think it's really important that whatever training you're doing or whatever documentation you're making available to individuals shows that it's for them, specific to them, so that they don't have to try to figure it out. When they go there, they get the solution, and it's available. But with that, I think it's really important to have it available. Self-serve is super important for individuals that are doing new technology. We're remote, we're global individuals these days, so I think it's not feasible for them to be looking to HR to help them unless you have HR everywhere and available to answer questions. So it needs to be self-serve, needs to be available to individuals that they can look it up whenever they feel that it's necessary for them to be able to get the information they need. So I think that's really important for an implementation too.
Thanks. So just building on that too, I'm just wondering, what are some of the common issues that arise with implementing HR technology, and how can we avoid those issues? So what have you experienced? Maybe share some examples.
I'll share one that I've gone through just recently, and it's kind of to some of the earlier points that were brought up, is the practice behind the policies. And that's going to come up as you're in implementation. You're going to be sort of tested, if you will, on what you're actually doing and how all of those policies and rules actually live in true practice. And I think there's going to be things that come up that maybe you weren't aware of, or you hadn't thought about all of the intricacies that go behind building some of that. And so I think it's important to be prepared that along the way, there's going to be some roadblocks where you're going to have to really understand what the organization is doing, and does something actually maybe need to be changed. Sometimes implementations and new technology forces you to rethink some of your practices and some of your policies, and maybe it's an opportunity to improve them. Maybe they hadn't been looked at or thought about in many years, and it's actually something that's opening up that box and that discussion of, hey, wait a minute, maybe these policies and these practices can be improved, and there's something that we can leverage through this new technology to make it even better. So I think that understanding those things are going to come up along the way is important. And then I will say your day-to-day doesn't stop. So your own time management and understanding that it's a big undertaking. It's a great one, and it's going to provide so much value, but you're also going to be challenged with balancing all of your key priorities and all of your day-to-day. That doesn't stop as well. And so just, I think, keeping that in mind as much as possible before you start and during the process will help you as much as it can.
That's so true. Your day-to-day does not stop.
No. I think the other thing I think is really important from the start is make sure you have the right people in the room. So, make sure that you have IT or security, that they're in the room with you and not an afterthought like, oh, shoot, we have to do an SSO or whatever it is. And they're like, this is new. So have them be right in the beginning, maybe even from the selection perspective. I like to kind of include them when we're looking at vendors so they can ask those really essential questions that I might not be fully aware of. So have them in the room from the get-go. I think that can save you a lot of heartache as you're going through the implementation towards the end.
And something that I've sort of focused on is pre-implementation. How prepared are you? Because it's not just during the implementation or after the implementation. It is your preparation to that event is so very important for you to be successful during that time frame when it kicks off, because that gives you an understanding about the entire process that you've probably done in a system that was customized. You've not thought about that, which is run for 10, 15 years without any hiccups, whether that is a best practice because you're trying to sort of move the same cheese from this to that. But is this cheese stale before you actually consume it? You're not thinking about that. So you need to sort of invest time into reevaluating everything that you're doing at this point in time and how you want to sort of scale that up or move that to the new place. Along with that, you also need to sort of be really aware of what is the size of the organization that you're dealing with. Are you building yourself a scale? Are you building yourself to sustain? Are you building yourself to be compliant? I think those three important aspects need to sort of go hand in hand when you're moving from place to place or moving to a new technology from an old one. I think that's really, really important in my opinion.
Thanks. So I wonder, with HR technology, how does it enable the HR professionals, the leaders from HR, to be more strategic in their organization? Is there technologies that helps elevate the role of the perception of HR in the organization?
I will say that it's number one, those data insights that you're going to be able to extract from your technology that you can bring to that seat at the table that you have. And how can you use the data from your new technology to determine what actionable outcomes the business needs to work on, and how is HR supporting the business goals? I think that technology can play a really critical role in the HR people team understanding what KPIs they need to put in place and identify what those metrics are. And that's all going to come from the data and the technology that you have. If you lack technology on the other end of it, you're sort of piecing together data from different sources, probably managing it in Excel, and that's difficult, and it's not going to be the most efficient way. So I think that strong HR technology, that's one of the key values that it brings to HR leaders, is that now you have data and metrics. Hopefully your technology is delivering some of those automatically, and then you're building upon that in terms of other analytics that you want to identify and extract. But dashboards, I saw it in one of the comments, someone brought up dashboards, and that's such a key feature to really think about and place some importance on. And you can put that in front of managers, you can put it in front of your leadership team. They can each have different dashboards that deliver to them real-time insights. So they have a pulse on the business at all times. They're not waiting for a report. They're not waiting for you to deliver certain information. They have it accessible to them at all times. Same for the HR leader. And it doesn't minimize the value of HR by any means. There's still a key role that HR places in understanding that data, telling the story, and then working with the leaders of the business to understand, okay, what do we need to do in terms of our strategy?
No, that's really, really good. And yeah, I just wonder from what you brought up is just how's data analytics and AI sort of transforming the HR decision making and then giving out that narrative in the organization. So analytics, big thing, and the AI we've spoken about earlier in the conversation. What thoughts have you got on that?
I think, as Kay did bring up in a previous conversation, it's all about how consistent your data is across your landscape, and are your systems connected? Because there is no point in building up your analytics dashboards if you have two different pieces of data sitting in two different aspects in your landscape. It all talks about how well it is connected. Are we putting in controls and audits in place to ensure that we are catching those outliers? Because it's not just building things right, it's about ensuring that things remain right during the process of your life cycle as well. And that's so critical. It also sort of highlights the importance for us to sort of ensure this data is readily available rather than having to depend on anybody. It is even for executives, it is even for your managers, even for your employees. How accessible is the data? Do they trust or have confidence in the data that they see? And do they trust HR with ensuring that data is secure? Are we addressing all those aspects when so much of information stays with all of these technologies that are out there for us to engage with?
I think the one important thing that we need to think about when we take into account technology is, yes, the data, it's the synthesizing of the data makes it possible for us from an HR perspective to be more strategic. I think that's very, very important. It also starts to alleviate the time that we spend on tactical pulling together data, like Lindsay was saying, pulling it into Excel, multiple systems, who's got access to this, that is time consuming. And that's time that we use trying to figure out what data we have is then alleviated with the systems that can actually do those things for us, where then we are just set there for the data and looking at it strategically and how it can best serve the business. So I think it is a huge time saver when we start. It may seem it doesn't sound like a time saver when you're implementing, right? Because it's just so much. But at the end of the day, it really does free up your time to start thinking from a strategic perspective.
Yeah, and building that strategic perspective, I'm just wondering, let's just say your board's come to you and said, you've got this great budget to put in this new technology. We've talked about the data needs to be consistent and available. We've got legacy systems. When do we consider, like, are we going to just transform and change and go to something, one big fresh new versus, lifting and shifting and trying to get many parts all working together? What would be some of your thoughts around that?
Go ahead, Ajit.
So I think that's a very, very interesting perspective or question. To me, it is at what point do we feel stagnated by not being able to sort of use our business processes or change our business processes? And when are we pushed to the wall where we have to take things outside of the system? Because if our current system is scalable and if it is meeting all of our needs at this point in time, there is absolutely no need for us to think about it unless and until you have a urge or you have that free budget where you're wanting to spend. Because it's always that attraction to the shiny object that sort of tends to sort of push us to that frame where we want to sort of move to the latest, but what is a cost benefit analysis that we have on that? Yes, we move from a on-premise system to a cloud-based application. Yes, there are benefits to it. You are not risking the storage and anything. You're putting all the onus on the cloud storage partner. But what is the business benefit to sort of moving from that? Are we creating a bottleneck because most of these cloud technologies, they are not as flexible as an on-premise application as it would be? So you're looking at a cost benefit analysis, as well as where are we taking the organization to the future? Do we have a 20% growth potential that we're looking for? Are we looking at 2%, 3% growth potential that we're looking for? All of those, I think, talks into whether we should engage at that point in time, or we have some time to sort of rethink all of our strategies before we actually move to the next platform.
No, that's really good answer there. Do you want to add on to that? Anyone?
Yeah, I was going to add on just a little, and I'm thinking more, and we're all talking about strategy, and I'm moving more tactical. If you're thinking about all the data pieces that you have, I'd say, do you do all of them all at once, big bang change? Probably not always possible. It depends on the size of your organization and how much data we're talking about. But I think first step would be just look at what you can do from an HR perspective. If you've got legacy data in other systems, can you pull them together? Like, clean your data first, have consistent data from an HR perspective, and then broaden the data collection, right? Are we looking at finance? Are we looking at operations? Like, what are we looking for in terms of data? So start with HR first, get consistent data from all aspects that you have, and then go from there out. That's what I would think from a technical perspective. And besides, we're talking HR technology too, so you want to be sure that you have what you need so that you are moving from a tactical to strategic, that you can share that information with individuals, and then you can broaden the scope from there. Hopefully that was your answer to your question.
Okay. Now we're talking a lot about data, and a lot of data with HR is about employee data. We've been talking about AI and ChatGPT. What's crucial, talking tactically, what's really crucial for the organization to protect the data, protect ensuring regulatory compliance in this world? Because there's a lot of risk there, isn't there? Just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Right. At this point, I think what I've seen during my consulting years and in the recent past as well is when you're looking at HR technology implementation, are you aligning that to your overall infrastructure strategy? Because you need to ensure the HR technology stack is in line with your enterprise architecture stack, and ensuring that you've defined what sort of data is being held, who's responsible for that data, which are the business groups that are being supported, what are the translations that are being used within these data, and how is your system communicating with your entire landscape within the organization? Because it is not just you are doing your employee lifecycle management with the HR data. You're constantly sending out information from your HR system to other ancillary systems downstream and upstream. So it's all of those aspects that need to be sort of written down and well defined. And I've seen organizations lack the constant conversation with the enterprise architecture team to keep them updated as to how our data within our landscape is changing and what needs to be sort of adjusted on the strategy for data security, and how that gets reported for other data privacy related aspects that come aboard as well, even for the GDPR or CCPA that is being implemented. How do we get that data across in a timely fashion without having to sort of scramble for it when there is a subpoena that is being sent across to us?
Yep, thank you. You want to add on to that one? Maybe I'll just add on an example. Let's just say, I'm a manager. I've got all my team, their names. I've got what they're getting paid, and I want to present that in a report. And so I cut and paste that and put into ChatGPT. What would you think of someone doing that?
I wouldn't be happy.
I wouldn't think so,
No, I think when we start copying and pasting data, yeah, I think when we start using ChatGPT, we need to anonymize the data. That's what we're going to be doing. If you're wanting to know specific individuals, which sometimes managers do, right? They're like, I need to know who my individuals are because names mean something. Then it's a separate. You're not going to be putting that into ChatGPT to run your analysis for you. You're going to then have to do that separately if you want to keep the names. Otherwise, you're running it. You're going to have to anonymize the data so that you can get trends and analyze it that way. But I have also seen that when you have your own environments, you're within an enterprise for AI, you're not necessarily having to anonymize the data as much, just because you're in a secure environment. But like I said, everything starts from the beginning. Got to put everything in place. Like, how are you going to be using that system? What data is going to go in there? You're definitely not putting any PHI in there, because that's a definite compliance issue. So I think it's just, what kind of systems are you running? What are your processes? What are your expectations? Making sure that you have policies in place, and think about the data that you're putting in there. If you're using it public ChatGPT, you're not going to be putting your name and anyone else's name in there.
No, I think it's very, I think they quite published that all the data you put in there is all used to help train their tool. So you have to.
I think I saw a comment from someone saying that they were taking LinkedIn profiles to assess candidates, full names and experiences for recruiters. So, we need to be aware of things like that. Putting it straight into the system, it's there forever. Did you actually ask that individual whether you could actually do that? And if I do it on my own, that's my own issue, but it's not someone else.
Hmm.
And that's also something that and that's also something that you would not expect individuals responsibly handling data to be doing, and it is also something that you do not have control over as to how people might use that data. It's an individual choice. So the accountability on that person handling the data is so very important. And are they ethical enough not to sort of make that informed decision to not put that in, or are they careless about the data that they're handling? Because that's an individual choice.
I think that organizations have to prioritize, to that point, training and education to people at all levels in the organization on how to use this technology, how not to use it, what are the implications of it. So I think the education behind that, and maybe looking at policies and different things that the organization has, how do they need to update those and reframe those to meet some of these issues and needs? Because I think it's a great point and something organizations need to consider as a use case. What stops a manager from downloading data and putting it into one of these platforms? And they're going to. That's the reality.
Yeah, and the platforms that come so fast to us in the last almost 12 months. Now we've only got 4 minutes to go, so just building on that, then I think an important question is how organisations can promote digital literacy and learning among HR staff, and also the wider employee base. That's just so critical to implement any change, any new technology. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think the larger consideration is the change in the demographics of the workforce, because the younger generation, they don't want to be told what or how to navigate an application. They're probably self-sufficient enough to move along and learn by themselves. So, but the older generation within the workforce, they probably need more education and sort of a little bit of hand-holding on the technology side where applicable, to ensure that they're up to speed. They know how to use the technology, where to use, when to use, go for what information, where are the support documentation available for them to navigate to if they have a question, or guide them to the right place so that they don't feel stuck or don't feel frustrated with the technology that is being implemented. I think all of those plays into how successfully you're able to sort of roll out these digital transformations within organizations.
Yeah, really good points there.
How can you build those skills? I think it's part of learning and development and professional development. And when the organization thinks about how they want to grow their people, I think that it should be one of the key skills that they focus on, and how are they delivering training and education and resources that helps employees to become more digital and have more of that aptitude and mindset. If it's really important and it's really a big change and transformation that the organization needs to go through, they could even consider adding it into their values, their strategic ways to incorporate that into their values and ways of working.
Yeah, I agree. I also think know your audience, because not every company is going to have the same sort of audience. Some individuals may be, factory floor, one computer. So think about it from a what does your organization need? How are you going to get that into place? Like Lindsay and Ajit were saying, think about your technology and how you're going to train it. What is available to them? How is it available to them? I think is going to be really important to make sure that it's successful. And individuals know, the one thing I have noticed, individuals want to learn. So regardless of where they are or what age they are, they always want to learn something new. So you're probably going to have to take a look at who your audience is and formulate it to them.
And I think there is also this focus on the user experience that should not be lost during your process, because are you shooting towards a go live date? Is the go live date more important, or your user experience for a extended period of time important for you? So you need to sort of negotiate that with the right mindset before you sort of set foot on the go live date and then lose out on the user experience as they come into this new technology.
Well, I think that brings us to the end. So thank you, panelists, and to the people that have been listening to us and engaging in the discussion. As we conclude, it's really clear that strategic analysis, tactical implementation of HR technology is really pivotal for seeking to enhance employee experience and just make businesses more successful. So thank you, everyone, today, and for the insights you've shared. Looking forward to more conversations with you in the future. So thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.